Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting. In our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago, this week we're looking back at the hot comics from August 6th, 2021, and I'm recording this on February 3rd, 2022. As always, I give those dates so you guys know when this information is actually accurate because the market's always moving and changing. As always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Those are the two lists we look at each week. They put out a list of 10 books each that were hot that week, that were having a lot of sales, were moving in the market, and we see what's happened to them since. I do 6 months because I feel like it's a good time to actually whatever was happening has been kind of forgotten, but not too long to really have other factors maybe weighing in as well. And we just do this to see what we can learn. What books should we have been patient on? What books kept going up? And what factors changed that maybe made the situation with those books change? So, without further ado, we have 17 books to talk about this week. So let's dig into this list. First up, we have The Recount, number 1 from 2020. And this had to do with rumors about optioning. I believe this is the first time it hits the list. I think it hit the list again later, if I'm remembering that correctly. Maybe this was the second time. But anyway, back then there was rumors of it being optioned. This is a Scout comic book, and pretty much all those books get optioned, but I don't know that any of them have made it to actually been made into anything yet. But back then, this book jumped up to a $15 to $25 book. Now it's a $5 to $20 book. A 9.8 did go for $150, but that was one sale, and there really hasn't been, there's not a lot of these even slabbed. I thought this was going to be a trap. This actually turned into just an I'll be back. Definitely down, but not as much as I thought it might be. So that was our only kind of option news book of the week. Next up, we have a whole bunch of covers. First up, we have Marvel Tales, Miles Morales, number 1. The Joshua Shui 1 in 50 Virgin variant. So the A cover is this cover, but with trade dress, this is the Virgin. Back then, raw copies of this were going for 100 plus, which is only slightly double over ratio. You know what I say about if it doesn't get to triple, it's going to end up around ratio. Well, this one actually ended up below ratio. It's now a $20 to $40 book. So this one actually turned into a bit of a dumpster fire if you were paying $100 for this thing. Definitely didn't hold, dropped way back. It's a cool Miles cover, but this one was not a Miles cover that held value. Next, we have X-Men number 1, the J. Scott Campbell Rogue variant. That was limited to 2,500 copies. This had hit the list a few weeks ago. We talked about this when it first came out. By this point, it was going for $200 to $250. $200 to $250. So it was way up. I thought, oh, it might actually stay right here. It'd be kind of worth it. No, its raw copies are now $100 to $175. So not a awful, but definitely not what it's going for. A 9.8 will cost you around $300 for unsigned. Signed 9.8s are going in the $400 to $500 range, which actually most of the sales have been signed versions. But anyway, this one definitely turned into a bit of a trap as well, particularly on the raw side, as it's way down. You know, it's basically running about half of what it was back then. Next, we have Silk number 5, the Judy Jong 125. I was a little surprised this one kind of hit the list. It didn't really do much for me. I didn't particularly like this Silk cover as compared to some of the other ones that had been out. Back then, this one was going for 70, so it almost made triple ratio, which usually means if it gets above triple, it does pretty well. But this one didn't quite make it, so I still said I'll be back on this one, and that's basically what it turned into. It's now $20 to $45 book, so ratio to double ratio is kind of where it's setting. 9.8 is going for, well, only cost you about $100, 90 to $100. So this one turned into a trap as well. Yeah, I was surprised this particular cover jumped as high as it did. I mean, it's nice, but it's nothing particularly special, I didn't think. Our next cover is all new Hawkeye, number 5. This is the Chika Ogaki. Yeah, I don't know exactly how to pronounce her name. A variant. Back then, this is kind of a manga style variant. Back then, raw copies were up to $75. Now it's a $40 to $75 book. I put this one as worth it, but it actually ended up being down and a little bit of an I'll be back. So yeah, I predicted, I was wondering, I put it as worth it because I thought, oh, it will be 2 months after the show. Maybe it won't have backed up that much. But really, this one backed up even as the show was coming out. One of those interesting things, the trailers, the lead up tends to actually even have higher value sometimes than the show itself, particularly if it's characters we knew were going to be in the show. Now, if it's somebody that's new or we weren't expecting, then at the show is when they come up to the most. But if we know about them, a lot of times the trailer is the highest peak and not the show itself. Next, we have Spider-Gwen number 27, the Yasmin Putri variant. I didn't even know this existed before it hit the list back then, and I was like, oh, I want this cover. Good thing I didn't go out and grab it at $40 to $45 because now it's a $15 to $25 book. So I might actually have to think about grabbing it now. But this one definitely was another one that turned into a trap. Next, we got 3 more covers left here. We got Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles annual from 2021, the Zach Howard San Diego Comic-Con variant. This one was going for $100 back then, basically as it was being released around San Diego Comic-Con. Now raw copies will cost you $40 to $45, so about half. And there's only been 3 sales because list prices are still up around that $100 range for the most part. So this one definitely turned into a trap. I had predicted this was going to be straight cast because it was a Turtles book, somewhat rare, somewhat hard to get. So I thought, oh, this one might actually continue to go. Nope, this Turtles cover did not hold. It definitely backed up. So next, we have another sort of Turtles cover. This is Red Room number 3, the Teenage TMNT Homage. This was a 1 in 15 that jumped all the way up to $65. So if you think about a 1 in 15, that's over 4 times ratio. But I still kind of thought this was a trap just because who was even talking about Red Room back then? And I was a little overly negative on this one, but it did definitely back up a little bit. Now it's a $30 to $60 book. 9.8 sale going for around $90. So this is definitely down, definitely turned into a bit of an I'll be back. But, these turtle, I feel like there's been a lot of these turtle homages in recent years. This is not one of my favorites, but it's definitely still holding some value, just not what it was then. Last one on our list is Star Wars, or last cover related, although this is kind of a cover / comic buzz. This is Star Wars High Republic Adventures number 6, the Nick Brokenshire San Diego Comic-Con variant. This has multiple first appearances. That's why I put it as comic buzz as well as cover. Back then, raw copies were going for $70 to $80. Now it's a $40 to $50 book. So this one backed up for sure. Definitely a bit of a trap. Almost half of what it was going for back then. So yeah, not a big surprise here. A lot of these High Republic books have kind of backed up a little bit. We'll see if we ever get any kind of live action or even an animated series out of this and not just books, if High Republic characters start taking off. With that, we're definitely into Comic Buzz, and we had 2 of those that weren't, 2 more of those. First up, we have X Factor number 6, the first appearance of Apocalypse, and this had to do with events going around Hickman's run on X-Men. I don't even remember. I didn't make a good note here, so I don't remember exactly what it was back then. But a 9.8 was going for around $725. Now, 9.8s will cost you $500 to $600. So this one definitely turned into an I'll be back, like I predicted. Raw copies on this will cost you anywhere from $30 to $100, depending on condition. So yeah, definitely backed up here a little bit. Still a great book, still a great villain. So we'll see what happens from here. Next, we have Venom Lethal Protector number 5. This is the first appearance of Lasher and Agony and Riot. And this had to do with basically the first solo book came out this week, I believe for Lasher, yeah. Came out, was what caused this book to hit the list. We also were in the lead up to the Venom 2 when people thought maybe we might get some of these characters to appear, but it was really about his first, Lasher getting his first book. Raw copies back then were going for $20, and 9.8 hit $200. Now raw copies will cost you $5 to $20. You still might pay up to $20. 9.8 will cost you $125 to $175. So this one's definitely backed up a little bit. Another I'll be back on our list. Next, we're going to move into a little DC movie related stuff, and this is first up. We have Infinite Crisis, number 3, the first appearance of Jaime Reyes. We knew that he was getting a movie slash or TV show, one of the two. Sounds like it is going to be a movie at this point. So that was what caused this book to hit the list. Raw copies are up to $25, and 9.8 hit 300. We've gotten additional news since. We actually got casting and some other stuff. But raw copies are now only 10 to 25. 9.8 is down to 250 to 300. So this one's turned into an I'll be back. Even with additional news, it's down a little bit. You can do a little bit better than back then. Next, we have Infinite Crisis number 5, which is the first time he appears as Blue Beetle. So this was the casting. My apologies. These 2 books hitting the list were the casting news, but we've gotten some updates since then. Raw copies back then were going for $50 to $60 of this first as Blue Beetle, and 9.8 hit 435. Now raw copies will cost you $20 to $45. 9.8 will cost you $300 to $400. So another I'll be back on this. We're definitely in between casting and actually the project coming out. So it's cooled off a little bit, which is pretty typical. 4 books left to go. One more DC related book, and this is Superman number 4, the first appearance of Bloodsport. Obviously, this is in the aftermath of the Suicide Squad movie. Raw copies were going for $25, and 9.8 hit 300. Now, a raw copy will cost you $10 to $25, 9.8 will cost you $125 to $150. So really, almost a trap on the 9.8 side. Those are about half of what they were going for back then. Raw side is held pretty well, just kind of an I'll be back, but we've moved away from the movie. We don't know if we're going to get any more Bloodsport or not. We have gotten more Peacemaker, but we don't know if we're going to get more Bloodsport. My guess is we probably will, but who knows? But in the meantime, this book is definitely not nearly worth what it was. Well, it's backed up some from what it was when the movie came out. Next, we have a Sony spec book, which is Spider-Man Unlimited number 1, first appearance of Shriek. This was in the lead up to Venom 2, and that she appeared in the second Venom trailer is what caused us to hit the list. Raw copies of this book were going for 15 to 30, and 9.8 hit 2 to 225. Now a raw copy will cost you 5 to 20. 9.8 only cost you 100 to 150. Another I'll be back. The movie's come and gone. And yeah, so this book is not commanding the values it was back then. Last 2 books are some little bit of MCU spec. A lot of rumors that, we were going to get Ghost Rider related stuff, maybe in Multiverse of Madness. And then Key Collector sent out an alert that Marvel registered a name that was kind of related to this version of Ghost Rider. So that's where Ghost Rider number 1 from 1990, the first appearance of Danny Ketch, the second Ghost Rider, why it hit the list. Back then, raw copies were going for $20. 9.8 hit 550. So this is a little interesting. Raw copies now are 5 to 50, so really wide range on these. But the higher grade stuff is going more in the $30 to $50 range, although you can occasionally get stuff down, pretty cheap. 9.8s have backed up, though, from what they were. They're 3 to 500, but there's not many of those and not many sales there. So I did put this as up and worth it, just for the raw side of things, even though I predicted it would be a trap. So yeah, this one's actually on the raw side has continued to gain a little bit of value. Definitely been worth it. We'll see if we ever get Danny Ketch. I kind of doubt that's the version of Ghost Rider we get, but you don't know. And then last but not least this week, we had Ghost Rider number 28, maybe least. This is the first appearance of Lilith, also the first Midnight Suns. And this just has rumors that, we were going to maybe get a Midnight Suns project or something. Nothing substantiated for any of this, but it caused raw copies to jump up to $25. And 9.8 hit 500 for this. Now a raw copy will cost you 15 to 30. 9.8 only cost you 200. This one's definitely down. I'll be back on the raw side. Definitely a trap on the almost a dumpster fire on the 9.8s. But so yeah, this is another book that's been on and off the list multiple times because of spec related to Midnight Suns or Lilith or whatever. So that is this week's list. There were 17 books. We had 16 books drop in value this week. Only one went up a little bit. No steadies even this week. So yeah, this was one of the worst weeks. It continues to be this winter, the last few months, there's definitely been a market correction going on, in addition to these books just cooling because of reasons related to why they hit the list. There's also a market correction going on, which has really made most of these books from 6 months ago be bad investments here lately. So we'll see. Typically in the spring, we get an upturn in the market. We'll see if that happens. But for now, these books are definitely down and would have been worth waiting on. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.